discretion is advised.
What are some facts that make people say why? Do you know this? Many soldiers in WW2 with deep head injuries had coins sewed into them to keep them covered. Trepanning. A medical operation practiced since the Neolithic era, though usually it refers to the intentional drilling into a skull. It was later used to describe the process by which a hole in the skull, caused by unintentional trauma, is freed of potentially harmful bone fragments and hair, and the bone around it is often filed down to prevent any more pieces from breaking off. In later eras with more advanced technology, they would sear a metal disc into the skull, melting it with the bone to keep it in place. Sewing it in actually makes a lot more sense if you can keep the skin over it from dying. When a person is about to die from a chronic disease or from age, they will often actually have a glow up, a last day full of energy and presence. When this happens, in a hospice patient, you basically know that death is around the corner. Unfortunately, family members often misinterpret this occurrence and think their loved one is getting better and visit less often after this surge of energy. I'm neither a nurse nor a doctor. I learned this in a philosophy class in college and then later saw it happen in my grandpa when he was in coma. It looked like he miraculously got better for a day when his overall prognosis was absolutely hopeless, and my father suggested to skip visiting him next day. But due to what I had learned, I pushed him and my uncle to come back early on the following day, and we were all by his side as he drew his last breath. It was of course sad, but due to what I had learned I was already expecting it, and it was nice to be there when he was dying. I love to share this fact, but kangaroos drown things that follow them into water. Other fun weird facts include that octopus sometimes punch fish out of spite. Most koalas have chlamydia. Crocodiles and alligators have stomach acid that can dissolve bone. And the inside of a leatherback sea turtle's throat is coated in spines going down towards the stomach, so that jellyfish can't get back out. For that last one, think the Sarlacc pit from Star Wars with all the teeth pointing down. That's what their throat looks like. The Texas heat sun is capable of killing off bacteria that'll eat away at a corpse's skin. This can lead to extreme bloating before causing a mummifying effect. One of the side effects for scarlet fever is peeling hands. You can literally pull off your finger skin like a glove. There was one recorded homicide in New York City on 9/11. The victim was a man named Henrik Sigwiak. There is an old Danish law that's apparently still in effect that allows Danes to beat up Swedes with sticks if they try to cross the Resen Strait when it freezes over. We have solar eclipses because the moon is 400 times smaller than the sun and also about 400 times closer to the earth, which is why it obscures the sun perfectly during a total eclipse. Also, as a side note, the moon is moving away from earth roughly at the speed our fingernails grow. During the Second World War, the Germans developed a weapon called das Mine, or shrapnel. The Allies nicknamed it the Bouncing Betty. It was essentially a small explosive device that, when triggered, would bounce up into the air at a height of about 1 meter testicle height, then explode, releasing either 360 steel balls, short steel rods, or scrap metal pieces. It wasn't designed to kill, it was designed to maim. I was driving back to work with my cowhawkers and saw a garden structure that had a triangular piece on top. I told them it looked like the torture device known as the Judas Cradle. Vodka is basically branded and watered down neutral spirit. A spirit distilled over 95% ABV will end up losing any distinguishing character, hence being called a neutral spirit. A neutrino is so small, it has a 50% chance of passing through a piece of lead 1 light year long without ever coming in contact with an atom. This doesn't just taste bad, in fact it doesn't taste that bad usually, but there's a chemical in it that just makes you gag reflexively. That's why it's hard to drink, not so much the taste. The kiss shared by Kirk and Uhura generated not hundreds, not thousands, but one single letter of disapproval, which came from a self-described white southern gentleman. He basically said that he didn't agree with it. but Hero was hot, so he couldn't blame Kirk for going for it. Horses are omnivores and they sometimes seek out meat after lots of energy has been lost. I worked on a farm with horses and various other animals including free-range chickens. One day after the horses got back from pulling some logs all day they were put back into their pen. Well, some of the baby chicks were hanging out around the fence looking for mist feed, and one of the horses just snatched one up and ate it. She was a friendly horse, but after I saw that I made sure to never put my fingers near her head. Gangs of 2 or 3 male bottlenose dolphins isolate a single female from the pod and forcibly mate with her, sometimes for weeks at a time. To keep her in line, they make aggressive noises, threatening movements, and even smack her around with their tails, and if she tries to swim away, they chase her down. The type of skin on your lips is called mucosa. It's the same skin you can find at your anus, because the lips and the anus are the two ends of the pipe called the alimentary canal. Hyena's clitoris often size is 7 inches and looks like a penis. Wombat shits are square, probably so it cannot rolls over, thus marking their territory. My father told me how our tribe was at war with orangutan, because orangutan often kidnap and kill female human. I did not believe him, until in 2010s I read a news about an orangutan attempted rape on a male human with long hair that was fishing next to a river, thus looks like female from behind. The human guy fought and jumped to the water. He is safe, but lost his pinky finger. Then he go to police to report it. So they send him to hospital to stitch him up and then bring him to hairdresser to cut his hair. Police have no idea how to file the report cause the perpetrator is an orangutan. And a species of bat have productive male nipples, so the male's also nursing the baby. Jeffrey Dahmer almost got caught by police when one of his victims managed to escape and flagged down the police. But Dahmer managed to convince them that this 14-year-old battered and bruised boy was his boyfriend who was being hysterical. So the police made the victim go back with him, and Dahmer proceeded to finish torturing and killing him. Not a fact, but it prompted a very memorable "why do you know this?" moment. Locked myself out of my apartment. Asked the neighbor if he had a couple paper clips or something so I could pick my lock. He offered to just call a locksmith. It was quite late. Bet him I could pick the lock before he got a locksmith on the phone. I did. Why do you know how to do this? For exactly this situation. James. A pet rock is a great pet until you realize it's essentially immortal and you have damned it to an eternity of watching loved ones die. 1 bees like sleeping in flowers and they cuddle together and hold each other's feet just to do it. 2 flowers are both male and female and they make pollen. To make more flowers and bees take the pollen to other flowers. Pollen in flower sperm and bees are a special wingman for flowers. So I from the US. This story takes place like 2003 went to Ireland when I was 13 on vacation and my grandparents who took me made sure I had learned a lot of Irish history, so I was pretty well versed in this. So, app history. I'm maybe 15 or 16 and my history teacher is like, so what is the oldest terrorist organization that's still around? And it's early 2000s so everyone's guessing Islamic terrorist groups and I'm just like the IRA. And everyone looks at me because apparently no one knows what that is. Which is ironic because I live in Massachusetts and like half of us have at least some 40 shades of Irish blood. And that's how everyone I went to high school with thought I was a terrorist. A 16-year-old once died from masturbating 42 times without stopping. Therefore, it is safe to assume the maximum times one can jerk off continuously, non-stop, without dying, is 41 times. There is a story about a device known as the Brazen Bull. It was a hollowed out statue of a bull made from brass. The condemned would be locked inside and a fire set underneath it roasting them to death. The hole inside was set up such that the screams of the condemned would be converted to the grunts of a bull. Supposedly it was only used once. On the creator. There is no fully verifiable proof this device really existed though. There are claims the Vikings would practice a form of execution known as the blood eagle. Think cutting into your back and having your lungs pulled out of the cuts to form wings. There is no evidence this was ever practiced either. How to properly walk in heels. You can't walk heel toe. Gotta lead with the knee and land the foot flat. Really shortens your gait. Easier if you sway your hip into the step. I know this because it's my job security to know if who I'm looking at is actually who they claim they are. It is possible for the human body to have spasms in the alimentary canal digestive tract that forces waste products back up the alimentary canal. In other words, you can regurgitate urine and feces. Tap water contains enough mineral contents to stain glass over time. That's what causes the foggy look on clear drinking glasses. Or from how I know this, bars. One of the most iconic basslines ever, 7 Nation Army by the White Stripes, was not actually recorded on a bass. It was recorded on a 1950s semi-acoustic guitar turned down an octave. Chickens have semen compartments and can decide which mate that will impregnate it post-coitus. It can also squirt out the semen of mates it does not consider worthy. Having your head severed is not instant death. You're actually still alive for a few seconds after before losing consciousness. They'd be the longest few seconds of your life. Barcode scan the white parts. I learned it when my brother was telling me how they worked, and that they scan for the presence of light, not its absence. White surfaces reflect more light than black surfaces, and so barcode scanned the white parts. There was a surgeon who performed an amputation in 25 seconds, so quickly that he accidentally cut off some of his assistant's fingers. The assistant and the patient ended up dying, and someone in the room died of shock, making it the only known surgery with a 300% fatality rate. Also, commercial microwaves were invented to basically make zombie hamsters. Probably some really effective ways to efficiently stab a person with different sized knives. I'm an artist, and I like to write, so I know anatomy, and I was one of those writers that looked that shit up. On the flip side, I know which ones are most dangerous. Also, the stomach is the only organ without blood going to it, so if you're throwing up and it's blood, get some ducking help, you could be bleeding internally. The pirate captain wore an eye patch to make that eye super sensitive to light. As the day turned to dusk, he would be able to navigate sooner than anyone without us. He could see the stars better with that eye. This makes him King Lapper. At the Battle of Waterloo, the Prussian general was convinced that male was pregnant with a baby elephant. Human meat tasted fascinatingly similar to pork. Prussian women were ate sometimes by 8 Soviet soldiers at once. My Prussian great-grandfather had to dig a mass grave and pile up the village's dead into it. He was 6 years old. Celtic kings in Ireland would chop off their brothers' nipples, because that would make them imperfect, and if you were imperfect you could never be king. Years and years before the world wars, Switzerland rounded up tons of Jews, put them on a wooden platform and set it alight. All were burned alive. The Ottoman Empire would kidnap young Christian boys and give them education and shelter if they would fight to siege Christian cities. I think it was about just over 100 years ago in China they had a cannibal infestation, and it's as simple as it sounds. Loads of people were cannibals. Unit 713. That one island near Mexico where a single European man boarded, shot every single male, and then proceeded to one by one rape and then murder every single woman, even children. The voice in your head is always the same volume, even when you scream or whisper. J.R.R. Tolkien had an amazing sense of humor. In the medieval period there was the largest ever cavalry charge of 15,000 soldiers, mostly German knights, but also including Polish winged hussars. They were the final push to kick out the Ottomans during the siege of Vienna. You're welcome. Apples can kill you if you ate them a certain way. Basically just take around 16 apples and eat their seeds all at once, and you sir are guaranteed a one-way ticket to the afterlife. A cell can stop its death if it is natural and not due to pathogens or physical harm. It has multiple checkpoints where it decides whether it eliminated the faulty components. and if it did the process stops. This is also known as autophagy, and because it announces its death to every neighboring cell. It is also the reason why I consider cells huge drama queens. They can literally just go, oh, never mind, I'm fine. The same process that gives us aspirin also gives us heroin. Just swap out the salicylic acid with morphine. It has been shown that the virus that causes mononucleosis Epstein-Barr virus is also a huge factor in the appearance of Parkinson's later in life. Your touchscreen phone works only because your skin is moist. The screen registers the change in capacitance due to the ions in our sweat, and this sets off the signal that the screen was touched by us and not by a random object. This is also the reason why dry hands or zombie hands have a hard time using touchscreen phones. There is no change in capacitance due to the lack of sweat. There was a study around the 60s on dolphins with the help of NASA. The study was called Minds of the Dolphin, which besides other facts wanted to mainly prove the higher cerebral capacity that dolphins have and obviously find a way to use this for the greater good. The interesting part is that this project was funded by NASA and really they have nothing to do with the nature of this project. The man behind the project was Dr. John Lilly, that came up with a theory that dolphins can actually communicate with humans because of their higher intelligence than any other mammifer. The idea was to have a human being of the opposite sex to the dolphin live with the dolphin for as long as humanly possible whilst stimulating the dolphin's brain using LSD. The doctor observed the marine mammal living with another human to see if this would induce the potential of the dolphin's brain. Volunteer naturalist Margaret Howe Lovett was chosen to partake in this experiment due to her loving animals and thinking she could spend up to 10 weeks confined in the same space with a dolphin. Also, the idea of building an interspecies communication bridge has fascinated Margaret. She believed in her gift of being able to communicate with dolphins. And strangely enough, this was observed within the experiment. For 10 weeks, Margaret and Peter lived in a partially flooded 2-room house. The two were always interacting with each other, be it eating, sleeping, working, or just playing together. Margaret slept on a bed soaked in salt water and worked at a floating deck so that Peter could interact with her at any given time. She also spent hours trying to teach him simple words. Margaret really seemed to understand what Peter was saying, or at least wanting. After 2 weeks into the experiment, Margaret and Peter were living a normal life together, but there were no promising results as of yet. So Dr. Lilly decided to give the dolphin some LSD to stimulate Peter's brain in order to get quicker results or even better results. This did actually have an effect on the dolphin, as it made him uninterested in his communication lessons with Margaret and actually made the dolphin horny, craving for Margaret in a sexual manner. This is where the experiment gets very weird and really mind-boggling. Peter eventually started nibbling Margaret's feet and legs. When his advances were not reciprocated, he became violent with Margaret. Seeing that Peter was getting no attention, he began courting Margaret by gently rubbing his teeth up and down her leg and showing off his genitals. What is even more disturbing is that Margaret reciprocated and started rubbing the dolphin's erection. If you don't believe me, here is a video showing Margaret Howe Lovett admitting this in an interview. John C. Lilly, the neuroscientist overseeing the research, lost both credibility and funding as this wrong turn of events reached the media. Even if NASA did encourage the experiment, they said that they had nothing to do with the experiment in order to protect their reputation. Due to this, Peter was sent to a dolphinarium in Miami to be taken care of. The dolphin was still having some drawbacks from all the LSD he had consumed, but most importantly, he went into depression as he wasn't around Margaret anymore. In a short period of time, Peter died. Some say that his death was caused by a broken heart and that he actually committed suicide by stopping to breathe. The more plausible theory is that he had died from lung problems caused by the intake of LSD. Nevertheless, the experiment did show that dolphins are quite intelligent. Bruce Clark from Texas Tech University written a paper where he reviewed the experiment and its efficiency at actually putting Dr. John Lilly theory and hypothesis to the test. The experiment was forgotten quickly due to all the important events brought by the Cold War. The heights of all the Batman actors, and not the heights you Google. Those are a little fluffed. I mean their actual heights. Ben Affleck is listed as 6'4". In reality he's closer to 6'2". I only know this just cause Batman has always been my favorite thing since I was like 3. And the fact that I'm the same height the character is supposed to be 6'2" makes me very happy. Click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.